You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanout, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown.
Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I have the pleasure of sitting with Fibers artist Kamryn Shawron. Welcome, Kamryn.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, so glad to have you. I'm going to read a little bit from your website. The way you describe your work is stitching and sewing beads into both found and original photos, canvas, and everything else.
That's
all materials.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to start off a bit. I like to start on how people arrived in Savannah. So you moved here from, do I pronounce it Ocoee?
Ocoee, yeah.
Ocoee, Florida,
right.
For SCAD in 2012, around then?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, and your degree is in fibers. I'm so curious about this. When you came here, did you know that fibers was a degree? Is that what you came for, or did you discover that at some point?
Yeah, so I did know that. I did SCAD's week-long summer program. So they do like the Rising Star program that's for college credit, but then they just do a week, which I think is really a good way as a high school student to sort of think about college and experience that. So yeah, I took a fibers class with an MFA student. I actually taught it, Trisha Cookson.
Okay.
And yeah, from there, we felt it a little bit, and I just felt that it was so multifaceted, and I think really she kind of got me into it. I mean, she was, a mother who decided to go back to school, and what she was doing was so interesting. So,
was she like not multimedia, kind of mixed media as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just her presence, really. I wonder if I didn't have her as a teacher, if I would have wanted to do that, but. Yeah, she was just so approachable, and there was so much freedom. And so, yeah, I came to SCAD in the fall, I think of 2013, knowing fibers was what I wanted to do,
I think the fibers major is just so fascinating because I didn't go to a super specifically artistic high school, so I would not have ever been aware that was a thing. And I once, in my years at SCAD, heard the statistic that fibers graduate, it's like the highest percentage of people working in their field, which is fascinating.
Oh, wow.
So I always wonder when people come here, like if they already have heard of fibers or if they just discover it while they're here. Like when you were in high school, were you more into painting? Is that the art that you were imagining you'd go to art school for?
I think so. I think I did go to an arts high school, and it was more, I don't want to say traditional media, but yeah, it was like 2D and 3D, and the 3D was ceramics. So I only knew about fibers, like you're saying, from coming to SCAD. I feel like it's pretty niche.
Yeah.
So yeah, just in that week, it sounds like a little bit of time, but I feel like doors were opened for me as in terms of like how you think about artwork as a 15-year-old kid.
What a possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love, so within the fibers major, is it almost like there's sort of two tracks that you take, like the way that you've gone where it's fine art, and then the other track where it's more like working in sort of the industry, like surface design and working on carpets and wallpaper and things like that? Yeah,
so those are definitely some big, I think like the main branch off, but really it's so varied, and I think that's the awesome part of it. I mean, there's fibers grads that have, like stationery lines. There's ones that are working in the industry doing print and pattern for like Abercrombie and stuff like that. So it's just, anything really is fibers, and I feel like that's the way they kind of painted it to us, really. Like if you can qualify it as fibers in your artist statement, then it is. And I think the breadth of it is really a beautiful thing.
And so I'm sure during your major you had classes where you were like just literally weaving and working with yarn and things like that. It's so traditional. I love it. It's so varied.
It really is, and I think learning the basics is essential to figuring out how you can play, really. And we had people that were weaving, on a loom traditionally with fishing line in their own hair, and it's fascinating.
So it's really cool, like contemporary art, but using these incredibly traditional equipment.
Yeah, exactly, and processes.
So your current work is, I guess, maybe it always incorporates a photo, but you do on other materials, and then you're like hand beading, and you're putting in paint, and you're putting in like plastic bags, and it's very collage. How did you discover this realm while you were in SCAD, or did that come later?
Yeah, so I think really when my work took a turn, I guess, was taking the Beading for Fibers course with Sam Norgard, who is a wonderful person and just fascinating artist. I think beadwork is really what opened the doors. And then she told me, I remember we had the first project in beading is a map. You have to bead a map. I mean,
oh my gosh.
And that's open. So like however you perceive that.
Okay.
And I remember asking her, because we were using, for the most part, to learn the stitches, a substrate to bead into, almost like if you can imagine like a million dryer sheets pressed together, like a interfacing kind of.
Okay.
So that's
so
just
like finish that you could pierce it.
Right,
with the
but
needle.
but sturdy to where like it could handle the weight of beads, because beadwork gets kind of heavy.
It gets heavy after
yeah,
a while.
how dense it is. But so we got this map project. I remember asking if I could bead into a canvas instead of the substrate that we were kind of working on. And she was like, yeah, I mean, I don't see why you can't. Yeah, you could definitely pierce it. And she and I have stayed in touch since, graduating and everything. And she's like, I always saw you as a painter with beads. I always felt like you were painting with beads. And I feel like I never really thought about it, but thinking about it now, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely, I feel that I apply beads in a way to like immediately create texture.
Yes.
To paint, but with this alternative material.
Yeah, like the way painters might, you can use your paint and like add substrate to it to make it thicker or harder, make it stand up and more three-dimensional. Yeah, but instead with beads, you just take like a little one and a massive one, and immediately you created that texture that like a ton of like gel matte medium would. That's true. Did you, so you just had a feeling like for that project, you were like, I just want to do canvas instead. It just came to you. Yeah, and I feel like that's, ever since then, that was the game changer. Do you think it seemed to you that would make your piece end up more of like a piece of fine art, like a thing that you could hang on the wall? I guess, I don't know if I was really thinking about that. I think maybe in the way that it's like a ready-made object. Yeah, and I guess, because you think of, a canvas, then you could frame your canvas and hang it up. So it's just a finished piece already, essentially. Yeah. I love what you said just now about like having some really tiny beads and then having some really big beads that are three-dimensional. Because I don't even think of that as you were talking about beading, and I've even seen your work, but I'm thinking of like tiny beads. Right. Sometimes they're enormous, like a ball. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that, the contrast in shape and like texture. I mean, like some beads are faceted, some are shiny, some are matte, so you're like a jewelry artist. You must have so many. You must be such a bead hoarder. You must have like bins and bins of beads. There's a shopping cart in my studio that was behind our house for a long time. That's just buckets and buckets of beads and old costume jewelry and your little cart you could push around. Yeah, exactly. It's just Okay, so when you graduated SCAD, it was 2016. Is that right? And then what did you, as you were getting close to graduation, what were you imagining that your life was going to be once you were done with school? I mean, to be perfectly There's no wrong answer. No, whatever. To be totally honest, I think I was pretty scared because, like you're saying, it felt at the time that there were these two major tracks. There were, going into the industry, doing print and pattern, which was never, I don't want to say it's something I like, just not how my brain works. I don't. Right. And you didn't take a ton of classes to focus on that. Right, because I didn't enjoy it. So it felt like I had taken this, weird alternative scenic route versus the main path, and I didn't know where that was going to take me or how financially viable that was going to be. I think I was just terrified. You'd chosen the fine art arm, and then we're like, oh God, I chose the fine art arm. Essentially, and I think really having been removed from college and being graduated for a long time, I think it's a tougher route, I think, but it's totally viable, and I think you just have to work a little bit more. It's not as consistent as, working at a big print and pattern company, job. Just it takes some years to build it up. It does. You've done it. And some push and some, cold calls, a lot of like, hey, would you like to collaborate, and a lot of no answers. But You've had some cool, we'll talk about, you had some really cool collabs. So after graduation, you and I met because we both worked at Shop SCAD for a while. That's correct. And you, at the time, I remember that you were working there full time. So you were trying to work on your art on the side, but that's super hard, and everybody knows what that's like to have a full-time job and then be chipping away at it on the side. Was that getting easier for you over time, or did it take the fact that you then got furloughed during COVID to really be able to do it? Yeah, I think that's what it took. I think also, even though it was 2 years after graduation that I started working for SCAD, I think it was still too fresh. Like, I feel like I needed, a post-graduation
break.
It's a little break.
Yeah, so it really was. It was being furloughed and just having that abundance of time. I feel like what we thought was going to be a week turned into months.
The beginning part was 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Right. And we were like,
oh,
oh, that's a nice little vacation that, I maybe didn't save up time for anyways.
Okay, so somewhere around summer of 2020, you were home and you were like, you had time.
Let's do it. Yeah, and it started with that big piece. I feel like you've maybe seen it in person before, and it reads, I used the knife of my brother to steal skin from my sister. And it's letters on that interfacing material that I painted and cut out and then hand beaded each letter and then stitched them onto the canvas to read that sentence.
It was like a magnum opus. It took a long time.
It did take a long time, and I think having that time, I don't know, it just was like, why did I stop doing this? Like, why have I taken such a beat? But you're right, life gets in the way. A full-time job takes up a lot of your time, and then from then on I was like, I'm always going to be working on something, I think, just for myself.
Well, I was just actually talking about this with somebody yesterday where that I've in the past had a certain piece of art that I thought I should do this because I know it'll sell and it's an appealing thing, and for some reason I just didn't sit down and do it. It took months or maybe a year, and I finally did it, and then it did sell well, and then I thought, why didn't I just do this earlier? But I had to come to realize, not beat myself up, but come to realize for whatever reason you just weren't doing it then. You just wasn't the right time.
Right.
And maybe if you'd pushed yourself and just done it, it wouldn't have been as good. Your heart would have been in it. You'd have to be easier on yourself and be like, well, I wasn't ready to do it. So I
think
just needed that break for whatever reason.
I think that's a really good point. I think that equates to life too. Maybe you should have bought a house, 5 years ago when the economy was great, and but you were ready now, so it happened now.
Yeah,
and
you were that person, and you can't beat yourself up for what that person was.
I fully agree.
So that sentence that you stitched on it? What does that sentence mean? I used the knife to.
It's really it's a part of a greater paragraph, I guess, just a writing I did, just angsty college
it's
turmoil. Yeah, just
like a piece of your journal.
Yeah. Who knows what was going on back then?
That's beautiful. I didn't realize that you had done some kind of writing and then autobiographical work of your writings.
I guess I don't really think of it that way, but that is what it is.
Yeah. How big was that piece?
It is 3 feet by 4 feet.
Okay. Do you still have it? Or
I do. It is in the studio. I feel like it creeps people out more than anything. Yeah. They're like, hey, what does that mean? I'm like, no, I don't have a brother, if that makes you feel any better.
You don't even have a brother.
No. It's just, it's imaginary. It's a story.
If you had a brother, I imagine he would feel pretty creeped out by it.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's why I felt I could take liberties.
Okay, so that piece you worked on, and that kind of broke something free for you. And then did you start, a lot of your work incorporates photography and specifically portraits. And I know you have a nice camera and you take a lot of the portraits yourself.
Yeah.
Is that kind of when you started doing your own projects with it?
I think so. I did, before COVID, I did put together a solo show of portraits that I'd done and then I embellished the subject during the actual photo shoot, and then again when the image gets printed out on whatever substrate, stitching back into it. So I did a show of portraits in 2018. I think it was a constant theme and a constant substrate, but I felt like maybe they were really personal, they were important to me because these people I knew, but then I felt it was just maybe a little too just personal, I think.
And you reached out to people and you had in mind a specific photo shoot.
That's right, yeah.
Because I remember, was that the period where we sat down with Rachel Flora and you made her put cake and frosting all over her face?
I would like to say for the air, though, that she was in full consent of that. And
it was great.
I would dare
so
even
fun.
say that it seemed like she enjoyed it.
And then so she had frosting all over, and then the embellishment you did on it was sort of this thick whipped paint that was extra frosting.
Right, to further enhance. Yeah, exactly.
How did you decide, when you would pick out specific people in your life and have this vision of a photo shoot, how was it just wild, random, weird ideas you were having, or?
I think so, and then also what I thought each person would be willing to do. I mean, sometimes I was wrong, but more often than not, people, would be like, okay, sounds good.
It's for an art project.
Yeah, I think so.
People do anything.
I was going to say, that's true. I'm probably on the tamer side of what people were willing to do.
Yeah, who knows what you're going to do after this talk, right?
Yeah, get some ideas cooking.
So on your pieces, you have your photo that you do yourself, which I love. It's the entire art piece is yours. And then you're embellishing it with paint and with beading and other materials. Do you have a sketch or a design or a plan before you start working on the photo, or are you just freewheeling it?
Usually freewheeling it, unless it's more of, I think really when the pressure gets put on is when it's for someone that I already know pretty well. I feel like it's a lot easier, like when it's a gift or a commission for someone. I'm working on one right now for a family that I know, and I feel like the pressure is really on because I kind of know them and their sense and their taste. So it's got to fit like a very specific narrative.
Okay.
But otherwise, when I do it, yeah, it is just, and I think the beauty of it too is that with like the portraits or just photos I would take, I'd often embellish them several times. So like maybe I'll print that photo out 6 times in the span of a couple months, and then each embellished work like has a different tone, a different feeling, different colors, you know. So it's nice to be able to rework my image, you know, I mean, to death, really.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing about that it's photography.
Right.
I love, and that you just referenced it being a story. It's cool.
Yeah.
So you're, it's the mood and the vibe and the different materials and everything with each one. I did want to ask you, so yes, some of your work is you take commissions from people, and then it wouldn't necessarily be a photo you took. They might give you some old photo.
That's right,
and ask you to work on it. How do you, when somebody books you for a commission like that, do you have to come up with a plan? Like, will they ask you for a plan of what you're doing, or are they just, do they give you kind of a tone that they want?
I feel like for the most part with commissions just for people, I have a lot of freedom, which is nice, because I think then I can just kind of look at this photo of people I don't know, which is nice, and like impart the tone that I feel it should have or that it says, you know. But I feel like really when they want a plan and an idea is working with like commercial kind of like, we want to put these pieces in a restaurant. Like we want to, that's when mock-ups and sketches and that sort of thing comes in.
But it's going to be very directed.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas I feel like at least so far for personal commissions, it's just sort of, maybe there's like a little thing like, you know, like, yeah, maybe no hot pink, you know what I mean? But but usually it's just sort of like, yeah, like we like what you do what you feel, and
I love
so
that.
far that's worked out, knock on wood.
It seems like a photo would be a very difficult substrate to pierce through with a needle.
Oh, like a printed, like a paper
like
photo?
that thick paper. You've chosen a physically
dangerous.
difficult thing for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a game of risk and reward. I mean, it is delicate. You have to be careful with your attention, but really, I think what's worked for me is piercing the photo from the top. So you're not blindly making holes. You're planning, okay, this next stitch will go here, that'll go here. Yeah. And obviously once you do that, it doesn't heal like a canvas does. So you've made that hole, you're married for life. So gotta be careful, gotta be choosy.
I'm curious about the materials that you use. Has it, over time, has it changed? Like, have you learned and grown, and you have certain tricks you use with the needle and not injuring your fingers in the process? Or what are your little tricks? A thimble? Oh, your little Band-Aid.
Yeah, well, no, I'm just saying I don't injure myself any less, that's for sure. Okay. But, I mean, it's easier on canvas. And I think you can get more textural. Like, the substrate obviously is more durable than, like you're saying, a photograph. So I think, just figuring out, like, more so what each substrate can handle, the direction it's going to go. If I want something to be really like totally crusted in plastic objects, and it's probably got to be a canvas or a panel or something.
It can hold more.
Exactly. Or using that interfacing material. If you want to do a photo like on photo paper, you're going to be a little bit more limited.
Do you have a thimble that you work with?
I don't, but maybe I should.
I'm really married to this. It's all, I feel like when I was a small child and my mom taught me just how to like sew a button on, I feel like a thimble was a thing that always came in the little sewing kit.
Oh yeah, and they're so beautiful, and especially like the metal ones, but I maybe I should, honestly. But at this point I feel like they're just here for whatever I throw at them.
Do you have to, some of the beads are tiny, do you have to have one of those, do you work with like a headlamp like jewelers do, a magnifying thing?
That is a great idea. Not currently, but I feel like in the next couple of years we're probably headed that way.
You're young, you've got those young, fresh eyes.
I mean, they're going.
And at some point you started incorporating plastic bags into your work. How did that come about?
I really love just the iridescence that you can find in like wrappers and plastic bags. There's a lot of beautiful trash out there, I guess. A lot of great colors, and I think just anything to, I mean, I hope that people look at what I do and they can immediately recognize the texture, even if they don't understand like, oh, this is hand bead embroidered, you know, that they just immediately like, wow, like these are like, I can at least see like 3 different materials.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the the plastic bags and the wrappers lend themselves to achieving them.
That's cool. I hadn't even thought. I just sort of think about like the crinkliness of them and the different material, and I hadn't thought about the shininess, which I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like a crow. You're into shiny.
That's really romantic, Tamara. I'll take it. I think I'm like, there's just a lot lot of trash.
They love shiny treasures.
I was thinking more a raccoon, but crows are way more beautiful, way more dignified, I think. So I'll take, a crow it is.
You've had a lot of features in zines. Is that design?
Right.
Zines
and
magazines. How have those come about? Is it kind of snowballed? Like the first one found you, and I wrote down a few of the ones you've been in. Candy Floss, Photo Trouvé, Under the Bridge. You've been in a lot of different publications.
Well, most of them are application processes, which I know you are very familiar with. Sometimes you hear back, sometimes you don't. But yeah, I was fortunate enough. So Candy Floss actually isn't in publication anymore, but Shelby McFadden, who is a multifaceted artist and writing a young adult fiction book right now, came about with that. And she actually reached out for another magazine that she was a part of called Picture, but it's spelled like Pikchur.
Okay.
Also not around anymore. But I think that was really validating too, because I made those 3 masquerade masks and had my friend model them. And I think they were just on my social media, and she reached out and was like, look, like, we'd love to give you a feature. And I mean, honestly, I thought it was spam at first. I was like, this is fake. Like, I'd love to buy artwork for my wife and our anniversary,
I will send you much money.
Yeah, via check, yeah. But it turned out she was the real deal. And that was really validating, as I think it always is, that other people respond to what you're doing or see value in it.
Yeah, and the idea, I mean, if she found you on Instagram, just through tagging, it's nice to, like, you do all this work and you put it out there, so it's nice for every so often something
to see a return.
Yeah, like a new person comes across your work.
Yeah,
it is a lot. Yeah, like what you said about that a lot of these things are application based. So I feel like for, young up and coming artists, you got to get used to applying for things and like
just putting it out there.
Not to get, there's a lot of rejections, and don't feel discouraged, and even people who are actively working and professional are getting rejected from stuff. I get rejected from stuff all the time.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, and I think that's what really changed. Her reaching out was like, you know what, I am going to put it out there more. Because, what's the worst thing? Somebody says no, you feel a little bruised. But like you move on, because for this person that said no, somebody somewhere else might say yes.
Somebody else said yes.
I mean, I've tried several times to get into Create Magazine, haven't made it yet. New American Painting, that's a big one.
Yes.
And I feel like
that's everybody's white whale, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like when you do, if it happens sometime before my death, you're gonna feel such relief and joy.
Well, you know, a couple months ago I talked to our friend Angela Burson, who we love, and we talked about New American Paintings because she had been in it recently, and I told her that I had applied to it a bunch of times and always got rejected and stopped applying, and she said she'd applied a bunch of times and got rejected and finally got in, and she encouraged me to keep going. So I'm going to tell you that Angela Burson, who we love, also,
and idolize, right? That's always very cool to hear that.
You really never know.
Artists that you respond to have struggled in the same ways that you are. You're just like, not that it's, you don't want your friends to struggle, but it's like we are doing this together.
And you see them getting into something, and that's all that you've seen. But you haven't seen that maybe for years she applied for it.
Maybe it took that $60 fee 100 times.
I did see in your CV that there was some sort of feature you had on New American Paintings. Was that like on Instagram? It looked like?
Yes, which was, oh my God, it was actually that piece I told you about from 2020, and they did I forget,
knife cutting.
That's right, yeah. So they did something, I forget what exactly they called it because it was 2020, but it was like show us what you're working on, essentially, like post it to your stories.
Got it.
And tag New American Painting, and it was so. I think it was a great thing that they did, because I feel like it united us all in our individual homes, and I think a lot of creative people were taking that time to explore and think about how they felt. So yeah, that was absolutely.
So they reposted you on their story?
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. I think
that's incredible.
It's nice that you bring that up, because I was recently rejected from the South issue. So I'll just, I'll hold on to that Instagram feature, and you're right.
It's on your CV, which I love. It's there.
Yeah, it was a big deal at the time.
No, I would be excited too.
Yeah.
I forgot to even apply for whatever the most recent. Isn't it once a year you can apply for your region?
Right, for your region, yeah.
Let's every year, Kamryn, let's check in with each other and see
if we have the $60
which
to do it.
Which email we've gotten from them.
Do it at the same time with some kind of, beverage, whether it's good or bad,
Let's see. You had a show. Let's see. There was this shop on Bull Street. What was it called? The Rat? You had a very cool show. Was this like right before COVID as well? You had a really cool show. You had a bunch of art on the walls, and then you had a bin of things that people could flip through.
That's right, yeah.
You're very good about doing small pieces that are matted and people can just buy and put into a frame. I bought one of yours too, and I know during COVID you did like all of us were doing these like Instagram sales where you're posting a bunch of things and people would just reply and
snag
buy
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Was that show that you put on for yourself? Right. And that rat, was that sort of your first show that where you hung everything and you did it?
Yeah, so that was like my first solo show. I did not hang it myself.
Oh, okay.
Ava Pandini, who also oversees the Whitaker Street Windows at Starland Yard, was the curator behind that and installed everything. That was a great space also.
Yes.
Yeah, the rat was terrific. But yeah, so they hosted an opening for me, and then things were up on consignment.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my first solo show, and I think that was 2018. So I had also just started at Shop SCAD. So it was a lot.
You had a lot of work. It was beautiful.
Thank you. That means a lot. It was a labor of love for sure, but I think it was also, like you're saying, it was a real uphill battle at that time to make working full time and like being pretty recently graduated. So I feel like it was definitely a climb.
Yeah. That was that was when you first started working.
I feel like in the fall maybe I had the show and I started working for the shop like in January. So like September I think is
Yeah, it's interesting. So you had to do a lot of work to get that up, and then maybe you're like, now you're exhausted and you need to like take a real break after that.
Yeah, maybe. And then we got a very big break in a couple of years
that
that nobody anticipated.
Okay, well, I have tons more I want to talk to you about. I'm very excited. We're going to take a short station break now. Again, everyone, I'm here with Kamryn Shawron, amazing local fibers artist who does hand beading on photos and other materials, and we will be back.
You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.
Trees are one of Chatham County's most treasured natural resources. Beyond their beauty and cultural significance, the impact of trees are far-reaching and compounding, spanning from economic benefits to health improvements to climate change resilience. Trees are woven into every aspect of our lives. Savannah Tree Foundation protects and grows Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. More information is available at savannahtree.org. This portion of WRUU's programming is brought to you by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have online ordering and curbside delivery available, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we're a voice for the community. It also means that we're counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I'm sitting with fibers artist Kamryn Shawron. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Kamryn and her fiance recently bought a house, which is very exciting, and now you have multiple rooms, and so you have a dedicated space for your art studio. So I want to talk to you about that. That's amazing.
We in September of last year we bought a 1967 brick ranch after a lot of toiling and a lot of dead-end searching, it felt like.
Yeah,
so
and moving apartments every year for a couple years.
That's correct. So yeah, that's where we are now in like the Windsor Forest area, and I have a room filled with beads and plastic bags and Barbie shoes and all kinds of stuff.
Are you a very organized person? Do you have tons of bins?
I do have a lot of bins. I don't know that would make me organize.
Okay.
I feel like beads go very quickly from being like one color, one strand to just, this box is yellowish, like it's all the yellow beads. So I try to be, it's not a huge room by any means. So I do try to keep some level of floor space accessible.
But it makes a big difference to be able to keep your things out to work on all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, just not working on the kitchen table and having to pick it up every day. Yeah.
I feel like when if I'm talking to people at a craft show or a gallery or something, and they're like, marveling at your art, and they're saying, "Oh, I wish I could be creative," and I always think like, well, you need a lot of time and you need a lot of space for it, because if every time you sat down to do art you had to like set up your stuff, then it's really daunting, and you're not going to do it as often as if the barrier for entry is like literally you just sit down and work on it.
Right. Absolutely. So, accessibility I think is a huge point of motivation, really. You're right. If it's not accessible, it's harder to feel motivated.
And you kind of, if you just have a spare half hour, you can go to your studio,
retreat,
make your stuff.
Yes.
The way they always said at SCAD, that was like, they had posters up all over the building saying, "Go to your studio and make your stuff," which I love.
Oh,
like,
that's
just
wonderful.
Stop wasting your time. Go do your stuff.
Yeah.
How has it been getting into a workflow of like, what is your day like? How do you organize it?
Yeah, so I currently nanny part-time for an awesome 2-year-old little boy. He's really great. But when I'm not with him, I have full studio days. I feel like I read a long time ago, like do your hardest task first in the day. So when you start, whether it's like an email or like a contract or, like
the thing that you're like dreading
basically
doing.
For the day. Yeah. So I usually try to start with that. And I think this year has been really wonderful. The end of last year for me at least felt like a marathon in terms of like projects and life, and this year feels like a nice soft re-entry.
Interesting, yeah.
So
you're regrouping.
Yes, and it's been really nice to kind of revisit things that I didn't quite get to last year, or look for new opportunities, new connections. Yeah, I
feel like maybe in professional art careers it's like these waves. You're one or the other. You're like either in the midst of doing all these shows and projects that you'd taken the time to build up for yourself, and then those end, and then you have a phase where you have to like hunt and gather and scratch and collect up new projects for yourself. Yeah, like a chicken scratching the ground.
Exactly.
That's me finding projects. So one project you did, it's called the Whitaker Street Window installation. Is that right?
Right.
So locals are going to know this as that vertical like glass column right outside Starland Yard.
That's right. Yeah.
How did you get that project?
So the woman actually who curated my Rat on Bull show, Ava Pandini, I feel like I'm butchering her last name. She's wonderful, but she's actually the one who oversees that project in collaboration with Creature Comforts, the brewing company. At Starland Yard, and she had reached out to see if I'd be interested, which was phenomenal. Also with Amanda Sutton, who is the representative for Creature Comforts, and they give you a stipend basically to have those massive like 75-foot by 90-foot panels printed, because they're printed on vinyl. So I did that with an image. It's like this decadent party scene, like hands reaching for cupcakes and sprinkles and popcorn, and printed it on vinyl, painted on it, stitched beads into it, and then they string them up for you.
This is one huge vinyl piece.
Well, so it's the windows are split. Okay. Because that's their office in there in those shipping containers.
Wow.
Which is fast. There's a spiral staircase. Yes, it's
a spiral staircase. It's like a lighthouse in there.
Yeah, the inside is wild. So it's 3 separate panels, and each window is different dimensions.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah.
Okay.
It's complicated, huge Photoshop files.
So you came up with this idea of the party scene. And what was the photo shoot like for that?
So my friends, Katie and Brittany, helped orchestrate that with me, and I wish I knew. I feel like just trying to think about something that was like universal and joyous, and I thought about text for a while, like maybe it would read something. But anyways, we decided on this decadent party scene, and my friend Brittany Reedy actually came over with poppable, like microwavable blue popcorn.
Blue popcorn?
Yeah, it's blue. I don't know
Never heard of that.
How food safe that is, but yeah, so we popped some blue popcorn. There's like, stars and sequins and cake stands, and I just took these photos of this wild tablescape and went from there.
How long did you have to do the full project, the photo shoot, and then getting these printed and then doing all the beading on these panels?
Man, I wish I remember. I do feel like it was tight.
Okay.
Because it went up at the end of January. It's up for quite a long time. maybe a couple weeks.
Okay.
But I think typically you get the panels printed and then they just kind of go up. But I wanted
Right.
to add.
But your whole art is adding to that.
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
so I wanted to add to the pieces.
So you were working morning till night, just beating away.
Pretty
in your
much,
little
yeah.
studio.
In January of last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Do you have a bunch of photos of it, of the?
Oh yeah,
evidence of it?
of
Okay,
them up.
cool.
Yeah.
Like
it's-
at night and during the day, it looks different.
Yeah, it definitely did. I feel like nighttime was the prime, just based on how the windows are lit and everything. So
Yeah, it really came alive.
I tried to document it whenever I could.
Where are these panels hanging now?
So they are rolled actually in my studio,
Okay.
waiting to have new life imparted.
Is your
on
house big enough that you can hang them somewhere in your house?
Probably not.
You were just talking about needing wall art, so.
Yeah, no, true. And I thought it'd be cool to stretch them eventually, but
Oh yeah.
we'll get to that.
How did you feel about working so large like that? Were you having to were they on the floor and you're having to crawl around on them?
Basically,
Or-
as charming as that sounds, yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
I can imagine. I mean, the idea of like when I work on something that's big, that's painting, you're just on one side of it, but you're pushing a needle and thread back and forth through the front and the back. That
That's
seems
right.
very hard to do with a large object.
It was, and I think for that reason and the time constraints, I think it could have been more bead embellished. But you're right. Yeah, it was a lot easier, obviously, to get to the edges or the corners
Right,
of things
where you
versus
can reach
the
it.
dead center of the 75-foot.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
incredible
thing.
just thinking
It's-
about physically how to do it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you need another person on the other side of it to pass the needle through.
Yeah,
to-
exactly.
to
Yeah,
catch
it's
it.
a team sport at that point. Yeah.
You've had a couple of, through your Instagram I learned, it looks like you had a group show in Atlanta in 2021, and then you had a solo show at a different gallery in 2022.
Yeah.
How did those come about? That's cool.
Yeah,
Atlanta.
so Atlanta is wonderful. I think now that I've learned to drive there and back, I feel like I've traversed another planet, maybe. Yeah, so I think really Atlanta, I think I have to give credit to my friend and curator, Lynn Tanzer. She's phenomenal, just such a patron of the arts and female artists. She reached out about her show, Multitudes. I think that's the one in 2021 that was held at Free Market Gallery. And basically, her curator's statement about the show was just how women contain these multitudes and the multitudes of getting through the pandemic and just the way we exist in life with so many facets and
Yeah.
identities and
All the tasks that fell to women and mothers, especially.
absolutely, yeah, and women, mother artists on top of that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of hats, and yeah, that was a terrific group show of women, and yeah, from there just making connections. And my solo show is at a place called Empire Arts Gallery, which is a tattoo shop, boutique, and art gallery.
Oh.
That's woman owned and operated. So that's a terrific space as well. They do artist features every month in their gallery space, where you can sell work and there's an opening and a closing.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So yeah, just meeting a lot of awesome women in Atlanta, that are really passionate about the arts and supporting each other.
So that solo show, did they see you at that first group show, or did you approach them? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I did. So one of the women that was in the Multitude show is a tattoo apprentice at Empire Arts. And one of the owners was like, oh, we love what you're doing. We'd love to do a show with you. And I feel like as an artist, you'll probably know this. When people say that, I kind of, I don't hold my breath, As
Yeah.
creative people, we're busy, and that's a nice thing to say.
Right.
But let's see if it comes
A lot
to
of
pass.
possibilities are thrown out, and yeah,
Right.
you learn, unfortunately, pretty quickly that you can't get super emotionally attached early on.
Exactly, yeah, without, just being devastated if it doesn't. But sure enough, it came
Yes.
to pass, and they were terrific and a lot of promotion, and it's just a wonderful space to be in. And
Yeah.
a tattoo shop, gallery, boutique, it's everything.
Yeah,
in one
everything you
place.
could want. Did you get a tattoo while you were there in your show?
No, but I need to. I always make a point to visit when I go up there and to shop from their boutique.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, like a shop SCAD basically, but
Oh, great.
just local artists making all kinds of things.
What did you think about? So now you've had a couple of group shows and openings in Savannah and also Atlanta. What do you think about comparatively the cities?
I think Atlanta obviously is much bigger, so I think working on a following maybe a little bit more there. But it's
Yeah.
a totally different energy, and
Yeah.
so much public art in Atlanta, so many huge murals, and it's two totally different animals that I adore equally.
I suddenly got this vision of you doing a mural and using like a hot glue gun to like glue enormous beads on your mural.
That would be wild and fascinating. I'm not opposed to it at all.
Right? Have you ever worked in hot glue gun before? Is that a thing?
I have. I think the longevity of the hot glue gun turns me off a little bit, you know.
It's not
Whereas
permanent.
You stitch it, and unless you're just really cruel to a piece, they're not going to go anywhere. And also the backside is it's its own piece.
Yeah.
Seeing all the
threads
lines,
everywhere.
Right, of like where the needle travels from here to there to place another bead. So, yeah.
You know, I was just thinking as you said that you were talking about that in school, one of your first projects that you did beading on was like the assignment to bead a map.
Right.
And then I thought if you just did any piece and you turned it over, then it does look like a map. It looks like following like roads or routes, or when you look at like an airline map and it's crisscrossing the country.
Yeah, that's probably, I think it gets
fascinating.
Yeah, it gets chaotic quickly. Yeah.
Is there any, so as a person who's, now that we're speaking of this, is there any benefit to keeping the back tidy and thinking about the placement of things, or does it not matter at all? Like, does that come back to bite you at some point in the piece if the back is too crazy?
You know, kind of. So if you go really far distances, right, like if you got a square canvas and you want to travel from one corner to the other, you're going to have a really long stretch in the back you could get caught on as you're stitching back into it. So maybe thinking about your distance, like stitching in an area versus like just going totally all
tying
over
it off.
things. Yeah, so maybe in that way.
You're probably, so you working with thread, you're basically like a surgeon, where you're just really good at tying things off and literally threading the needle is
I love it. I'm going to
hard.
tell a doctor that next time.
What have we come up with so far for you?
Too.
You're like a crow.
A crow, and a surgeon. I don't know.
I feel like this is your new bio.
Which one's paid better?
the crow.
Excellent.
Can you fix mistakes on a piece when you work with needle? I know you talked about with a photo that once you've like pierced it,
right,
you can't really fix the hole. So
yeah.
What do you do? Have you ever like, say you're working on a commission for somebody and you place something and it's weird? What do you do?
I mean, I do spend a lot of time cutting out beads for sure. Like basically you just have to cut the stitch. And I mean, like you're saying with paper, you obviously need to be a little bit more calculated to cover those holes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I guess you could put some thick paint on it.
You could put thick paint on it. You could use some wax crayon to kind of like plug the holes. You could,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, kind of maybe use some paper at that point. Like we're talking about wrappers or plastic bags.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do often cut things out if they don't feel right or sit right or.
Yeah. Yeah, you could you could heal a hole in the paper by just putting on. You could patch it, like put some more paper on it.
Yeah, but obviously I
love that.
It's not as forgiving of a material, so you gotta be gentle.
It's very interesting. When I work on canvas a lot now, but I used to just work on paper, and it's like thickish watercolor paper.
Right.
And if you make a mistake, you can use an X-Acto knife and like very, very delicately scratch off just the top layer of paper, and then keep working into it. But yeah, you can't go down forever. You're gonna make a hole in that paper.
Right. That sounds more like surgery than a needle to me.
I loved doing that. I think it's so fascinating. You're like just tiny, scratch,
to
getting literally like little fibers of the paper off.
Couldn't be me. Right. Not delicate enough for that.
I did want to ask. So a lot of your work that you do for yourself is portraiture. Is your real your love that you start with?
Right.
What is that? What does it mean to you, the portraiture?
I wish I knew how it started.
Yeah.
I wish I did. I mean, I've always enjoyed photography. I did take a couple photo classes during my time at SCAD. I don't know, I think just capturing like candid moments, I feel like, which is sort of ironic because all the photos shoots are orchestrated, I guess, but
well, it's like you orchestrated like the mise en scène or whatever, and but then people are gonna do their action of whatever. Like
that
Rachel with
true.
that, I sat in on that photo shoot where Rachel was putting the cake all over her face. She was just doing
her thing. Yeah, I think that part is really interesting. Like how I have an idea, but people impart their own tones to it. Like I had a vision for like a clown, and I didn't really think much further than that, but when I had the subject come in, he was actually like kind of somber and very sad, like kind of like a Pagliacci type of like happy sad, like the Italian kind of clown vibe, and I didn't anticipate that. So yeah, I mean, I think there's also something really fascinating about, even if I get the same person, like I get Rachel again and we get a cake again, she's in a different place in time,
right?
We're not going to get the light exactly the same. There's no way. I mean, we could try to recreate the photo, but it's never going to be exactly the same. Like those,
This is kind of like with your art. It's like even before you get into the art that you're doing with the beading and the painting and the materials on it. You're like, it's sort of like you're creating, it's like you're a movie director, but then people are improvising, you know?
Yeah,
Like you give them a little scene
essentially.
and then you're just letting them improv. And then at the end,
Exactly.
you're sort of like, but then at the end, you kind of are creating your own story out of it, like you said, the
Right.
colors and the textures. You're like the final storyteller.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like
the
doing the
end.
final edit, stitching the movie together.
You are.
Director's cut.
How come you haven't done it with photos of yourself?
Ooh, I've done a couple. A
Yeah.
lot more sparingly than other people. I think I did one in 2018 for that Painted People show.
Okay.
The red-haired one was me. That Jason James and his wife actually owned.
Did you take that photo yourself, or did someone else do it?
Someone else took it.
Okay.
And then in 2021 for that group show, the first group show in Atlanta, the figure with like the red mesh bag over the face on it is also me.
It was you?
Yeah. So
How did it feel like to be the one having to suddenly do the improv and the motion?
I think better because I think I feel like I arguably do some maybe weird things with other people, but I think I saved the weirdest for me a little
Really?
bit. Yeah, or maybe like not necessarily glamorous. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, but I enjoyed that piece, and I don't know, not because it's me, but I don't know why actually.
So you could be going in kind of like a Cindy Sherman direction
Yeah.
in the future.
Adore Cindy Sherman.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know about her until being in Fibers actually, and one of my friends was like, "Oh yeah, do you know about her?" And I was like, "No, I haven't encountered." And they're like, "You need to study
I love
up
this for you.
quick."
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's what a marvel.
Wow. I did want to ask, how is it, so when you're either doing commissions for people or when you're having these shows and you're having to price your work, I feel like when people work in fibers, like any kind of quilting or something that it takes a lot of time. It's
Right.
a little different time-wise than paintings. How has it been for you figuring out pricing for your work based on how long a piece is taken?
It's definitely not something that's super straightforward. I feel honestly I could probably be technically better at it. Like there could be more of a structure. But I try to think more, maybe this is a little too emotional of an answer, but I try to think more about what the value of the piece is to me versus, I mean, and not like outrageous, right? Like it's worth $20,000 to me, but more about the objects that are in it and like the feeling of the statement. And I think as complicated as that is, some pieces are worth more to us than others. I mean, obviously there's a general like, okay, the size is kind of going to be in here.
Right.
But yeah, I feel things that are more valuable to me, I price that way.
That's interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
that is definitely a very emotional way to go about it.
Yeah, I'm probably not great. I mean, but in the counter to that is that I want to be accessible to people that just enjoy art and
Yeah.
like to collect things, and not everyone has tens of thousands of dollars to put into something. So I
Not
try
everybody
to,
does.
there's a real duality. I think probably for most creatives, you know,
Yeah.
wanting to be valued for your time and effort, but also wanting it to go to people who are going to appreciate it. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it means a lot if, you know, like when I sell, you know, a $30 print to like a college student or something, it means
Right.
a lot because
Yeah,
they
of
could be
course.
spending that money on, you
Yeah,
know,
groceries or
Yeah.
laundry if they go
Pot.
to a quarter.
what do college kids buy? Yeah. What do they value?
You know, I'm a much more responsible college student in
Those
my mind's
laundry.
eye, I guess. Laundry, groceries.
I was,
Tamara maybe we had different priorities in college.
I did kind of want to touch on, so we mentioned that back during COVID when I feel like everybody was doing this, people were coming up with a batch of art and just doing a bunch of Instagram stories and selling
Right.
things like that. Did you enjoy doing that, like kind of churning out a little batch of art and then doing a sale and like doing a little quick sale like that? Do you like working like that?
I think so. I think it's also, I really enjoy doing those mystery bag sales that I do, which basically I think is for like the indecisive person. Like basically I just take little samples that I've been working on and mat them and wrap them in like a present, you know, and then basically people just pick which present they like the look of the best from the outside.
Oh, okay.
So
They're literally getting a tiny mystery art to frame.
exactly. It's a total surprise. So the only choice you make is like, oh, I like the blue paper, or I want this one with the pink bow.
Interesting.
So yeah, I feel like it's fun. I think my expectations over the years have changed. I feel like I'm really just wrapping them for myself. So like if any sell, that's an added bonus. But yeah, I think it's a cool way to interact, and again, keeping that accessibility and price point. Like
Yeah.
they're usually no more than like $50, so
Okay.
it's a lot more achievable, I think, for everyone. I hope, you know.
Do you like to do you have a batch of maybe like 5x7 pieces and you have them all out and you do an assembly line and you like like working on them all at the same time, juggling them? Is that how you work?
I feel like lately I'm trying to, because I think it's just important to like stay in the swing of it, like drawing every day. Like I try to beat a little bit every day, and then eventually, I've collected all these things and I'm like, what do I do with them?
Yeah.
So then they become mystery bags.
You do a great job. I mean, I'm going to obviously put in the liner notes this link to your website and to your Instagram, but your Instagram is beautiful, where you're just creating, even it's always just like a little look down at a corner of what you're doing, and then a corner of like the mess on your desk. And they all are, I mean, just your square photos are like a work of art. I feel like you're really good at just creating like a beautiful scene of objects thrown together, and like a tablescape almost.
Well, that means a lot.
So the idea, I love that you like wrapping up your mystery piece, and you enjoy doing it, and the colors and everything.
Yeah, I think I think it all always goes back to texture, and I mean, I know the pros and cons of social media, but I've always liked to like journal and sketch and like craft like books of what I'm thinking about. So I feel like I see social media the same way. It's just a digital diary. I understand like the benefits and the downfalls, but I'm really just documenting like for my own sake. Like, this is where I was at this month of this year. Like, this is what I was working on, what I was thinking about,
But each image is beautiful. You either, I mean, I don't know if it takes you a long time to do it, or if you just naturally, like, it's so easy and it just comes out, and each image is so artful. They're gorgeous. But I remember also working with you at Shop SCAD, whenever anybody had a birthday and you'd like make a little card for them. Even just the way that you would write somebody's name on the envelope, you would like really go all out and decorate somebody's name. You put a lot of thought of color and texture and effort into literally like writing someone's name on an envelope.
Well, that means a lot. I mean, I just really enjoy it. I mean, I don't know. I think that comes from my mom is really good about sending like mail and packages, and I think I don't know what she did, but I feel like birthdays really started with her. Like, she was always really passionate about like making us artful cakes, and I think we should all just celebrate more, no matter what,
There's there's a huge theme in your art of parties and like party hats and cakes and glitter and that kind of thing. It's kind of like your real, I feel like your work, it really distills down into, and a lot of the photos you do for commissions for people, it's a photo of, a birthday or a celebration or something.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how that came to be, but I definitely enjoy it, and I think that it should be more of a focus. I think maybe it's sort of my focus senior year of college was just like celebrating like our human aspects, like even the gross parts, like just like embracing the fact that, I don't know, we're all going through this together. It's messy, it's weird, but we should have fun and throw a party hat on it, I guess.
I think that's honestly, those are really common themes to your work, that they are like literally messy. There's mess, there's paint or frosting all over, but it's celebratory. That's so interesting.
Yeah. Maybe like a good mess though, right? Not, I'm thinking like,
it's a great
like
mess.
bodily messes right now.
I love this. Well, thank you, Kamryn, so much. This has been fabulous. Is there anything at the end that you want to tell anybody, to tell people to keep an eye out for you about your work?
Well, I am...
Like you put it out in the universe and then you have to do it. So what do you want to manifest?
Okay. Ooh, that's good. Hopefully some little things are in the work just for me personally to go on my website. Maybe a collaboration with a cool jewelry company in New York.
Oh.
Hopefully. We'll see about that. But mostly I want to thank you for having me.
Oh my
and tell everyone to follow Tamara if you don't already.
Thank you, Kamryn. I love I'm trying to get people to follow you. So thank you very much for the shout out.
Yeah.
And congrats again on your home. I'm so excited that you have a dedicated space to work in and decorate and nest and everything.
Thank you. Yeah. If only we just had all the time and energy to just solely put into the house, just to solely decorate.
Well, this has been fabulous. Thank you, everybody. This has been Kamryn Shawron, local fibers extraordinaire.
Thank you. I'll take it. It's better than Surgeon and Crow. It's a good title.
All right. Take care. Here's some fun upcoming artistic events in town. On Thursday, March 30th at the Jepson Museum, they're having an exhibition preview and artist talk by Duff Woon Yong. Yong is going to share insights on his artistic journey from his upbringing in Singapore to his career as an educator in Savannah to his first solo show at the Telfair. It's called Ocoee. The exhibition preview is at 6 p.m. and then there's going to be an artist talk at 6:30 p.m. From March 30th to April 2nd is the Superfine Art Fair in Savannah. This is a 4-day art event with local artists, including Joy Dunnigan, who we had on our podcast a few months ago. There's more details and tickets at the Superfine website. This Saturday, April 1st, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Starland, there's going to be the Spring DeSoto Street Market going on. And then I wanted to close out today's show. I'm playing a song called A Shadow in the Light. This is an original Bond-themed, composed and arranged by Vuk Pavlovic, who's a local musician. This whole song is performed by local musicians. It's Amanda Jeter, Mark Chesanow, and Kelly Adams, as well as Vuk. The lead vocals are performed by Amanda Jeter, and she's having some serious health problems right now. So let's all send her our good vibes. So here is A Shadow in the Light. Next up on WRUU, That Old Savannah Magic from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.